mentioned while watching it the whole time, I was just like, I hate everyone in this movie. But for a movie like this, where it's easy to forget who's who, you have to make them unlikable to kind of remember them, or make them super likable. And
if you think of your brain as a hard drive, then this just transfers the files.
Oh my God.
Okay, so everybody ready?
Drive-By Movies, you're watching
Fresh Releases.
My name is Blaze.
And I am James.
And this week we're talking about the film, It's What's Inside.
What is wrong with you?
Hey, what the? Shut up! What? It is us against them. Us against them. Wow.
Yeah. Trippy.
It's spooky season, and Netflix just put out It's What's Inside. This movie is about a group of friends who gather for a pre-wedding party that descends into existential nightmare when an estranged friend arrives with a mysterious game that awakens long-hidden secrets, desires, and grudges. First week of October just passed, and oh my god, it just feels like HBO, Netflix, Max, Shudder is just throwing out way too much at once, and so I feel like we're stocked on movies to watch for the next 2 months. But this is a movie that wasn't essentially on my radar until the week of, when it started getting great word of mouth. And I'm glad I checked it out, because it's a very different movie. It's been a while since I've seen something like this, and does a lot of stuff better than other movies people might compare it to. But in my opinion, at least, what are your thoughts coming out of it?
Yeah, I have to say this was a pleasant surprise. Not my favorite movie. There was a lot of elements that I liked about it, especially I liked a lot of the editing, and I feel like a lot of people might lend that to the reason why they like this movie is because the editing was just so slick, especially up front. It was really well done, fast paced, or they were doing really cool things with social media and whatnot. But then I feel like the story gets super almost convoluted, and honestly my head started to hurt. I don't know if that's the point, but at some point in the movie I was just like, dude, I'm getting a headache off this movie.
Don't worry, I was having a headache too. Do not watch this movie with the reefer madness that's going around, because this movie will just mess you up. Like, I need to pause this. So I feel like this is like watching a math equation unfold and everything. I kept confusing myself, kept having to pause it and be like, wait, what's their name again? So that's this person in this person's body, but that body is no longer this and that and stuff. So there's a lot of that within the movie. I had to pause it multiple times, and I was just thinking, like, should I watch this sober? But I'm like, no, I'm so far in. I know what's happening. It's just like I'm getting confused a lot too. So I'm happy to know that I wasn't the only one who kept getting lost. But yeah, I paused this movie probably 4 or 5 times, but it was still a very fun watch. And yeah, I'd say that editing is like one of the cleverest aspects within the movie. It really utilizes social media well, has some fun cuts when we're like showing who's who within the movie. It's just like really fun and interesting and very different. Like even just going back into previous stories of like flashbacks, like as a whole different take on showing us what a flashback could go by. And I love that aspect. I'd say overall though, just the ending is what doesn't work for me though.
Yeah, 100%. I can agree with you there. And just getting into spoilers, like, I mean, go check out the movie if you're interested in it at all. We're going to dive into spoilers, but basically, yeah, just it has that, you know, now you can see, or what is it? Now you see me twist, where it just like drops the twist on you. And there was no way you would have ever got to that twist whatsoever. So it feels cheap in a way. It just feels like a cheap, easy way out, because the story got so convoluted that they're like, oh, this is how we can make it like a real cool twist, but it's not really a cool twist. It's just like an easy way out, and it just feels really cheap and I don't know, just kind of lame.
Yeah, like because there's some character development with one of the flashbacks. Like, you know, the twist involves somebody's sister. We have already spoiled it, but like basically it's Forbes's sister, and I just thought like, yeah, we mentioned her like twice, but they were very short 2-sentence segments that they brought her up and stuff. and it makes sense why she would want revenge, I guess, like when you think about it, but just that far into revenge though, I don't know about that. Like, you know, like, yeah, her brother got kicked out of school and then like everyone shunned her for having an episode. That's messed up stuff, but like, you know, murder and then like sending someone to prison for the rest of his life for being like, I didn't like the guy who ends up in jail. I couldn't stand that guy. Like I don't care that he's in jail, but wouldn't say he necessarily deserved that. But yeah, just there's just a lot of stuff where I was like, damn, is this really justified? But it is comical overall and a lot better than Bodies. Like I mentioned while watching it the whole time, I was just like, I hate everyone in this movie. But for a movie like this, where it's easy to forget who's who, you have to make them unlikable to kind of remember them or make them super likable. And overall, it's fine with me because everyone was unlikable and I don't like anyone, so I don't essentially care, but it could have been thought out better.
Definitely. Yeah, I have to say, I think it was clever of them to use like the Polaroids. I mean, the movie revolves around the game of Mafia, which is like a hidden roles game. I thought that was a cool concept. Like, oh, let's make this. I mean, technically, is this a board game movie? Is it the best board game movie that ever has come out? I'm not sure. I would say Werewolves Within probably takes that title, but similar. I mean, it's based on the same game, but yeah, like seeing essentially them utilizing these tactics to kind of help the audience along, because there's often times where like, who's there? And then you're like, I'm pausing it to just see who the Polaroid is. Like, I was like, that's pretty clever. But even with all that on top, I was like still getting confused. They do some other techniques where they like move the camera around a person and then you see who's actually there and not the, you know, who's inside that body. I thought that was all really cool, but it just seemed like they're doing all these extra techniques to try and help you. It almost made it even more confusing in a way where I'm like losing track of who's who, especially with such a big cast too. I think this might have been easier if it was pared down to a smaller cast.
Yeah, there's two characters and I don't remember their names, just to really narrow it down though. I was like, we easily could have cut down it by just two roles and that would have made such a huge difference. Like, I understand that like halfway through the movie, like, you know, the big thing that changes everything is two people dying. I get that, but we still could have made this work with two less characters though, I feel like, or even just one would make a huge difference too. But yeah, I mean, at least overall though, what we have is just a pretty clever script that just could have been thought out a little bit better. But what sticks out though is just like overall, I don't know if this is the director's first film. I want to say it was Greg Hardin who did this, or Hardin. Yeah, I didn't look into their previous work, but if it is, it's like a solid start though, just because it's very memorable with just the clever edits, the clever cinematography, and great use of color. Like, despite it not being a horror film, I see why Netflix put it out around this time, because it does have those spooky vibes.
Yeah, definitely. I think that this will fulfill a lot of people that might want to watch a movie that would be kind of, you know, more Halloween theme. I like to call them spooky movies, you know, where it's not necessarily horror, you know, it toes that line almost in a way in a safe space. But yeah, I would say that this definitely is a film that a lot of people are going to be watching. I'm sure it's jumped to the top 10 on Netflix. And yeah, I'd say check it out. It's definitely enjoyable. But at the end of it, it does feel like a cheap magic trick for me.
Yeah, and I can see that. Yeah, so overall problems with it, but solid, fun watch. And, you know, especially if you're new to watching, if you haven't seen the Now You See Me movies, then you might think that this is great, because Now You See Me is just, in my opinion, one of the worst movies I've ever seen still. But yeah, this is definitely not on that level, at least. But yeah, give us your thoughts on the movie in the comments down below. That's a great way to help support the show. And if, yeah.
And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and click that notification bell to get all our latest updates.
And speaking of updates, be sure to catch all our social media links down below. We got Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, as well as our own personal Letterboxd accounts. That'll conclude this week's episode. Tune in next week for a brand new video.